Hello and welcome to the gathering, the very first gathering of the village, the Farm Credit System's Women's Leadership Initiative. We are so happy to be here and to see so many fabulous women from all over the system raising their hands to be part of what we intend to be a powerful, beautiful, enriching, and empowering place for women of the credit system to thrive. I also see a few of our wonderful men joining us, and I want to say a special hello to each of you. Thank you for being here. My name is Rachel Angris, and I am the General Counsel of American Ag Credit, coming to you from Sonoma County, California. Before we get started, I want to acknowledge the women on this call that made today possible. I will start with Jean Cantu-Siegel, the Chief Learning Officer with FCS, who approached me during an event and asked if I would be interested in helping stand up a system initiative aimed at building, connecting, and empowering women across the system. I couldn't say yes quickly enough. Stephanie Barton, FCCS's SVP of Marketing and Communications, has also been instrumental in making today possible. From the system, we have Jenny Kreischer with Horizon Farm Credit, Rebecca Wood with Ag South Farm Credit, Jennifer Thompson with Capital Farm Credit, Shelby Schuster also from Capital, Jolene Curtis from Texas Farm Credit, Kelly Miller from Compeer, Kate Lambert from FCS Financial, Jenny Messero from the Council, Stacy Brown from Yosemite Farm Credit, and LaTanya Keaton with CoBank. These are the current members of the Village Council and the group of women who have joined forces to help create something bigger than ourselves. Helping shape a community intended to cultivate connection and empower growth and leadership for the women of farm credit. The goal is to provide farm credit employees with a network that will hopefully include things like mentorship programs, networking opportunities, leadership development resources, in-person and virtual workshops and events, and other resources including podcasts, webinars, book groups, materials, all focused on building community to foster leadership, innovation, and success among the women in the system. Participation will be flexible, and the cost of entry is simply your time and engagement. As we continue to build this out, the hope is that more and more can get involved to shape a community that can leave a legacy far into the future and provide the opportunity for engagement based on each individual's goals and interests. Today, as we wind down the year and run hard at finishing strong, as I know you all are, we thought it would be an opportune time to take a breath and bring folks together to relax, review, reflect, re-energize, and renew as we close out this year and run into the next. We're going to get into the heart of our program momentarily, and we will start with a mindfulness moment to help us all be present for this time together. I'd like to introduce LaTanya Keaton to lead us through that. LaTanya?
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you. Thank you for everyone on this call taking the time to come together with shared purpose, ready to share our experiences, learn from one another, and grow. As we come together to do the most important work, review, reflect, re-energize, and renew, I ask that you take a moment to relax. Please close your eyes, place your hands in your lap, take a moment to acknowledge the meeting, the conversation, the discussion that you transitioned from. Now, release it. Allow your thoughts to slow down and stop. Focus on your breathing, in through your nose, out through your mouth. Feel your jaw relax, your shoulders and back move with your breath. Your hands feel lighter. Turn your hand out and open it, palm up, being prepared for what's about to happen. Open your eyes and embrace this time and content because it's for you. Thank you. We are here on purpose, with purpose, for a purpose. And I hope you are ready for what's next.
LaTanya, thank you so much for helping us all get centered and ready to be here together. Rachel, thank you for kicking us off so well and sharing the purpose of the village. Next, we have a skill development session prepared for you, focusing on reflecting on our achievements and preparing for the thing we all love, performance reviews coming in 2025. Shelby Schuster will take us through this next session.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. I'm Shelby Schuster. I'm a learning specialist here on the HR team here at Capital Farm Credit, coming to you live from our newly opened HQ here in College Station, Texas. Really excited about that. Before I jumped in, I want to make sure that the worksheet link that is posted in the chat, we are going to have that you can take notes on and follow along. And we're specifically going to have time for you to walk through the worksheet on your own as we get toward the end of this segment. So it is thrown in the chat if you want to pull that up and have that available. And we'll go ahead and jump in, and I'm going to jump back to my notes here for a second. So we wanted to spend some time today reflecting on the year and also talking through some of the technical and soft skill application and practice and prep that we all can do to get ready for, like Jean talked about, performance evaluations. When I describe my job to people, I'm like, this is kind of a necessary evil, which I want to find a better way to describe it, but we know these are coming. You might have already had yours, but this can be a good follow-up opportunity for you or some ideas to carry with you moving forward. So one of the things I want us to think about as we jump in here is a win from 2024. What's something that you excelled at, accomplished, or a moment of growth? As you were thinking about what you would answer to that question, I also want you to think about this. How quickly did you answer that? Did it come top of mind really easily because you've been reflecting on these things already? And when you were thinking about it, did you really stand in the moment and take credit for your individual work and be like, yes, I did these things and they were awesome? Or did you try to deflect any praise and recognition or celebration about it to the group that worked alongside you? And while celebrating the group and the collective efforts that we make to accomplish our goals and initiatives within our roles, it's really also important to reflect on what we've done individually so that we are able to effectively advocate for ourselves as we go through formally a performance evaluation process at whatever time of year that occurs within your association, but also just advocating for ourselves on a daily basis. As we dig into self-advocacy a little bit, we hear it talked about, but may not be the best at putting it into practice. But I wanted to point out a few things to highlight it as we get into this today. Self-advocacy is a vital skill that empowers us all to take control of careers and achieve the goals that we set for ourselves. While we self-advocate for ourselves, we're able to effectively communicate needs, achievements, and aspirations. And this helps us secure a seat at the table and create a path to help us identify and vocalize growth opportunities that we're interested in. And while we can talk about these things, I just want to point out that this formally manifests itself in increased recognition. So as we continue to advocate for ourselves, we ensure that our contributions and successes are noticed by others. This helps lead to greater visibility from colleagues, other managers or team leads within your organization that you might partner with on a regular cadence or on a one-off basis, which can help us have some face time and be remembered when it comes for career advancement and promotions. This also can help with salary increases. And as we advocate for ourselves, this helps us negotiate fair compensation, and we can strategically outline, these are my contributions, this is how I've showed up within these projects and how I supported them and enhanced them, and how I want to be recognized and rewarded for that. And while all this sounds great, and I preach it quite a bit based on my job, we all probably struggle with it in different aspects, and we understand what self-advocacy is and what we do, what it should look like, and how we should try to do it. But we might fall short when it actually comes into putting it into practice. And I want us to think about why that is. So if you think about, there's collective maybe assumptions or instances where we all struggle with this, and then our individual tendencies or job experiences might lead into this as well, right? There's trying to toe the line between being humble or being boastful and arrogant when we're describing work and recapping what we've accomplished. We don't want to evaluate too subjectively and then have the feedback reflected back to us from a manager really harshly because we were very subjective. There's perceptions about assertiveness or gender bias and societal expectations that definitely factor into that as well. There's some proximity bias. If you're in one branch and your manager's in a different office, different location, state, whatever that looks like, or maybe some kind of hybrid environment where you are both in the office 2 days a week, but you don't see or get to communicate with each other every day, that definitely makes a difference as well. So we want to walk through a few, like I said, we talked a little bit about some of the practical tips to self-advocacy and how we can actually put this into practice for ourselves as we get into the performance evaluations. The first thing I want to encourage you to do is addressing it up front and just ask your manager what information they want to see within the performance evaluation. Some managers may want to see these specific things specific to 2 projects only because they were the bulk of the work that was done over the year. Some might want you to acknowledge things that they may not be aware of because they feel like they understand enough of what was done. So just taking the time to say, okay, manager, these are coming up, or this has happened. What are you looking for? And I know some of you that are on the call today may have already had your performance evaluation conversations, or you've already at least filled it out. And I think it's still worth bringing the question up and asking your manager what they would like to see so that you have that foundation moving forward and that expectation is set. If you are a manager on the call and if you say, do my team members know that this is what I'm wanting, what I would prefer to see, and you don't think that they do, I would encourage you to check in with them and let them know that again, so that foundation of what's expected is set, so that everyone has a clear picture of how to move forward within the feedback discussions. Now that we know what we want to talk about during the performance evaluation, we jump into information gathering. So we want to collect formal and informal data to support any ratings or comments that you make about your achievements. This could include formal performance metrics or reports, project outcomes, informal feedback. Maybe you have a couple emails where people provided feedback based on something, or the project output met or exceeded expectations and you want to acknowledge that, and you can include it in there as well. So the information gathering and having that quantifiable data is really key as we justify that the qualitative of what we write about ourselves. Then we want to jump into specifics and say, this was the win, and this is how and why it was a win. We want to use the opportunity of detailing the specifics to note how your effort and the wins supported either individual or organizational goals. I think this is helpful, especially if you're in a hybrid work environment with your manager and they don't get to see some of those intangible things every day. One of the things I'm being conscientious about doing during my review this year is noting those intangibles and how maybe the larger group or the larger association isn't seeing how that impacted the relationship dynamics behind the scenes, but they made a big difference. And I have an example specifically that when I was reflecting on all of this, getting ready for today, I felt like this year I was really able to develop stronger relationships and have better relationship building with some team members that I work with on a semi-regular cadence, but don't see or communicate with on a frequent or maybe super personal level. But we were able to strengthen the relationship through the project. And I think our relationship building through that made the project that much more successful, and the implementation of it go so much more smoothly because we were in communication and getting that really set and defined so that we could kind of present a united front, because it was a really big change for the association. So we've identified this is where the wins are, and this is how I'm specifically going to define them, but we don't want to ignore the other half of feedback and performance evaluations and not address constructive feedback or development opportunities as we go through as well. So we want to toot our own horn, but we also want to be candid about challenges or any difficulties faced. We want to talk about how those were addressed, what we learned from them, and maybe we're still learning from them. And, there's 5 pieces of this that we want to figure out. We've got 2 of them nailed down, and we want to work on these other 2 as we move into the new year. And we just really want to emphasize, as you're going through this experience, that now is the time to identify the growth opportunities and seek the feedback. We want to encourage you to be candid with your manager, tell them what's on your heart and mind, because the worst they could do is say no, or they might say not yet and find an alternative opportunity for you. And they aren't mind readers. They can't help you grow and learn and excel your career without knowing truly what's on your mind. I think Rebecca Wood is going to share a moment of receiving constructive feedback and how we were able to take that for good. So I'm going to turn the floor over to Rebecca for a second.
Thanks, Shelby. Hi, everyone. Rebecca Wood. I'm the Director of Business Solutions for Ag South Farm Credit, and I'm coming to you today from right outside of Pinehurst, North Carolina, and happy to be here. One of the things that I'd love to share to coincide with Shelby's great information is how feedback can help. It's definitely helped me very considerably along my career. And we've all had times where feedback was what I'll call less than. It was less than provided. It was less than received. It was really less than easy to understand or even apply. And so I'd like to share a real life story about how feedback that I was able to receive and apply has truly been career changing. Several years ago, I was fortunate to have had a 360-degree review completed for an FCCS LDP course. And if you're not familiar with a 360, it's a full circle, very deep dive feedback, and it's a view from all of the people that surround you, your direct reports, your supervisors, your second level supervisors or executive team, your peers, and then your pick of other people who could give you great feedback. So in mine, I picked ancillary team members that I work with, prior managers, prior team members, and also just a few people that I knew I could get truly candid, very valuable feedback from. the feedback is anonymized, and it's really important to leave it anonymized so that you don't discount yourself and try to either overweight the feedback. Maybe you would overweight an executive versus a peer when the peer might be really excellent feedback, or you don't discount the feedback as in, well, that person just caught me on a bad day. Maybe that's not realistic. So it really needs to be anonymized and left anonymized so it can be collectively embraced. And so I'm going to equate the first read of what and I'm sorry, the feedback comes together back to you in a booklet. So it's quite a thick, deep dive, and it's a great set of questions. And I had personally asked all of the people who I had solicited to do my 360 to be very honest and true and candid in their feedback, as I called it, the good, the bad, and the ugly, because we all have those pieces. So my first read of the booklet, I'm going to equate to looking into a mirror. So you see what you normally see when you do the first glance over of the feedback. I'm wearing a black top. I've got black hair. I've got some red earrings on. And that's really just the first glance. And then you go back and you really start to consider, let me deep dive into that a little bit more. So you get a little closer in the magnifying mirror and you look and you see perhaps the need to invest in some facial self-care to get some moisturizer on, or you see a few gray hairs pop up as every time the lens gets a little closer and closer, the deeper that you dive into the feedback. But the good thing is, and all jokes aside, is what I was able to get from it was really the following items. Some of the things that I was doing with the best of intentions simply were not landing as well as I thought. And I learned from some great folks that sometimes I overdo with the idea that I'm helping keep something off of somebody else's plate because I know that they're busy, when really I need to empower, trust, and delegate. And it's a topic that I have worked on many, many years since then and tried really to grow in, because people want to be empowered and they want to be able to grow and show all of the things that Shelby just mentioned. Some of the things that I was also considering to be more weaknesses were actually very appreciated. I do a lot of small gestures. I try to be very in tune with my team. I try to do a lot of things that are very personalized, and where maybe some people would say, gosh, you're just really close with that team and you maybe overstep. Other people said, I really felt like you took the opportunity to get to know me and to know my why and to know my what. And I really, continued to do those things where some others might have given me feedback that maybe that was overkill or too much, or I didn't need to waste the time. I'd actually heard that from someone. Don't waste your time doing that. Invest your time in other things. And so I think you have to be genuine, and I think you have to be personal. These are very personal feedbacks, but it was just really a great light bulb moment in my career. So even though it's several years old, I still get it out today and glance at it when I start to have moments of self-doubt, or maybe make sure that I check my reactions to things to make sure that I am showing up correctly as my best self. And I'm still looking in the same mirror and I still see the things I'd like to fix, needs to continue on self-improvement. But I also, when I look there, see that the lessons that I've learned, maybe in some wrinkles, maybe in a few new gray hairs. And the reason why, when I get asked to give feedback, I do so with that lens. And I do so in a kind, but also a very candid and supportive way. And I try to help people understand what they can do to genuinely appreciate the growth that they may be on, or the person who's staring back at them in the mirror. So they can be wonderful tools to be able to utilize to help yourself and your team and your peers grow. So what I've personally taken from the experience, it just boils down that it's the quality of the feedback that's given or received that makes it all the worthwhile to be able to take the time to invest. Anybody, anytime can say, great job, you're doing well. Just adjust whatever small thing without any kind of personal touch to it. But that doesn't make any ripples. That doesn't make any growth. That really doesn't lead to future success. So the really good and usable feedback happens when we genuinely care and we genuinely want to help someone grow and be better. And I'm very appreciative to those that have allowed me to take that along my career path as well. So Shelby, I'll turn it back over to you, and thanks for letting me share. Great to see everyone here today.
Yes, thanks, Rebecca. I loved your testimonial about the feedback. I got to thinking as we were communicating about this, about an instance where that happened to me. I have had a 360, but it's been a while. I would love to have that redone. But my boss, this was I can't remember if it was 2 or 3 years ago now, but one of the things that it was the small thing that I did, and essentially, and those of you on the call that know me won't really be surprised that I'm saying this. One of the things that I tend to do, because I like to, think I'm funny and have a good sense of humor, is I would tend to make self-depreciating comments and use self-depreciating humor in different situations. And in my mind, I was doing that to make myself more relatable and, down to earth. I'm from HR, but I'm not scary. Things are fine, whatever. But my boss said, when you do that, that is taking away all of the credibility that you're trying to establish in the moment. And I really took that to heart. And so I try really hard not to do that now, and just being conscientious of what I'm saying and the tone it's carrying, right? And maybe some of that subtext and nonverbal cues and body language that might be impacting that. So it wasn't in a formal situation where the feedback was given, but that was a small thing that I think has really helped me grow and evolve and elevate, not only how I see myself, but how I carry myself when I walk into a room. And opening up to feedback can be scary and it's uncomfortable and your palms might be all sweaty, but you can make a mini mindfulness moment like LaTanya walked us through, and just remember that people are, for the most part, coming with good intentions and they want to help you grow and help you succeed. And they're defining the ways that they think that can work. And to Rebecca's point, I think for me as well, even the hard, especially the hard feedback, but the good feedback as well, can have a lasting impact. So we are wrapping up here near the end of this section of our day. One of the last things I want to mention as something you can do to help prepare is consider drafting, either in a Word doc or practicing, on your commute to the office, in the mirror, getting ready in the morning, whatever that looks like, what you want to say. I think this can be especially helpful, one, if you're a manager, just as you're preparing, if you have new team members or there have been some dynamic shifts throughout the year, whatever that looks like. But it's really key, I think, to work on this if something in the conversation is going to come up that's either going to feel uncomfortable or hard to say. More than anything, I want to encourage you that something should not be said aloud for the first time in the meeting, because I think as you practice, you can figure out if the tone you want to take or how it might land and what you want to say in support of it, and you're not trying to come up with it on the fly, which could make it more uncomfortable. Next, Jennifer Thompson is going to share some insights on how teams and managers are preparing for evals here within CFC.
Thank you so much, Shelby. I'm calling in from Round Rock, Texas today. I'm actually not in the headquarters near Shelby's office. Really happy to be here today. Thanks for asking me to be part of this group initiating the village, and also to talk with everybody today. And I'd like to share with you guys a little bit of what we did at Capital Farm Credit this year to help our team prepare for performance evaluations. And really for us, that started at that manager level. And one thing I would encourage you all to do, whether you're a manager or an employee, is listen to a podcast actually that FCCS put on. They have a great podcast program if you get a chance to listen to it. This is not a paid promotion. I don't work for them, but I do think they have great content. So if you get a chance to listen to it. And the one I'm specifically talking about today is one from January of 2022. So it's a couple years old, but it still holds true and is very valuable. And as we were preparing, we actually brought all of our leaders in to have a meeting to prepare for this performance evaluation season, as I kind of refer to it as. And I asked them to all listen to this podcast. Oh, look at Stephanie. She put it in the chat there, so you guys can listen to it. So grab that link. But I asked them all, like, on your drive here, because I got folks that drive in from all over Texas, listen to this podcast. And that's going to help prepare you for this meeting and some of the things we're going to be talking about. And Shelby just talked about, you as an employee thinking about what you want to talk about, and you as a manager. And we really wanted to set our leaders up for success to make it as meaningful as possible, because this is an opportunity. And again, it should be happening throughout the year, but this is that real opportunity to make sure we're all on the same page and everything's clear. And we really wanted to set our leaders up for success. So one of the things we did was first just started with, what does this look like? What does the documentation look like? What does this conversation look like? And we actually even brought in our head of HR, who is magical with words. He's just very good at helping you think through the best way to deliver a message. And we had our leaders in the room and we said, okay, what are you afraid to get asked by an employee? And, I kind of started off by asking a question that I know, some of our leaders get asked. And then slowly but surely, we had people sharing all kinds of stuff. And then he would help with, okay, here's how you can handle that question. And then we had leaders sharing with each other on how they have handled similar questions in the past. It was really just a great opportunity to kind of get past that initial fear, especially since we had new leaders. And this was going to be their first time to be giving performance evals. And we wanted them to feel very confident in delivering and answering any questions that they might get. Another thing that we did this year that we had pockets of our team doing, but we really wanted everybody doing this practice, was to send out a list of questions ahead of time to their employees to be thinking about for discussion in their performance evaluation. And I'm going to share a few of mine, or the ones that we use with you guys. It's things like, what has this year been like for you? Are there any goals that you found particularly challenging? What skills do you have that you feel are not being utilized that could benefit your growth and strengthen our team? Do you see yourself in this role long term, or do you have other development goals that we need to know about to help you with? Tell me about accomplishment you're really proud of. What are your goals for next year? And last but certainly not least, what do you need from me as a manager? How can I help you do your job? How can I better support you? And that one's so crucial and important. And I listed a bunch of questions, but y'all, if you've been paying attention to that chat, Stephanie asked a question earlier about what are some things you want to know as a supervisor. There are some amazing ideas of people saying, I wish I knew this for my employees. I would grab those and add that to a potential question bank for either you or your leaders to use in the future for performance eval season. I think there's a lot of good material in there. It was a great opportunity of sharing. And I think the same perspective comes through from the employees. As you are an employee preparing for this, Shelby touched on this, but what do you want to talk about? What are the things you really want to make sure that your supervisor knows? And as somebody touched on earlier, you have a variety of supervisors and feedback that you might be getting at a variety of qualities and meaningfulness for you as an employee. So what can you do for self-advocacy to make sure that you're doing the best to make it as meaningful as possible for you? So I hope sharing a little of this is a little bit helpful for you guys, some takeaways that you can share with your teams. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Shelby. Thank y'all.
Thanks, Jennifer. I haven't listened to that podcast episode, so I'm going to make note for my drive home next week for the holidays. So I think so much of what Jennifer touched on is a great segue into this kind of open-ended time that we have set now to give you guys the chance to work on the worksheet. I'm going to ask Corey if you could resend the link to that in the chat, just so that it's at the bottom of it. Now that so many great insights have been shared, I haven't gotten to see them all, but I'm going to jump back in here in a second, just since I've been trying to focus on my notes. But we want to give you guys this time. Like I said, the areas that Jennifer touched on are listed on that sheet to help you get an idea of what I accomplished in 2024, how I want to talk about it, what I want to do in 2025, and how I want to advocate for myself going through that. As you work on thinking about and defining your goals for 2025, consider what you know is on the horizon, how it will impact you, and how you want to impact it. And as you work with your manager and your team to try to outline what those look like, I want to put in a little plug that the goals should be clearly defined and defined well enough that both the employee and the manager could describe its success when asked about it. The last little section on the worksheet is your support network. That's your board of directors, right? These are the people that you're seeking the feedback from, you're seeking encouragement and coaching from, and hopefully you have that within your organization and on your team. But if you don't, and you are seeking that and maybe wanting to elevate and expand that within your network, I just wanted to put in a plug that you are in the right place, and we are so glad you're here and to get started on that. So Jean, Corey, I'm not sure who's going to keep a timer for us, but we're going to give you guys some time to work on the worksheet, and then we're going to come back and jump into the next segment.
How much time would you like, Shelby?
We had 10 minutes.
Okay.
We can,
Perfect.
I guess, guys, as you wrap up and you start to finish, you can put done in the chat. And if we feel like we're seeing majority of people wrapping up earlier, we can go ahead and jump into the next part.
And share some of your ideas too. We'd love to see that.
Yes.
All right, Shelby.
Thank you. It looks like we've been getting some goals and recaps in the chat, so feel free to keep sending those in. We love seeing those. I just want to celebrate all that's been accomplished within this group throughout the year. I went back through some of the messages and seeing what you guys felt like were wins, some of the goals and questions and things that you find value in, either in your own evaluation or those as a manager. I did want to see Nicole, I think you were on, Nicole from FCCS. She and I were able to collaborate on this section, and I just wanted to open the floor to her and see if there was anything else that she wanted to add before we jumped into the next segment.
Thanks so much, Shelby. It's so great to see everyone. I think from my perspective is just thinking about how to keep all of these ideas top of mind as you're moving throughout the end of this year and moving into the next. So whether that's about creating an accountability partner along the way, or having some kind of journaling process or a way to put it in your calendar for yourself. But there's so many rich ideas here. And so how to keep the momentum going as we move into the year ahead.
Great. Well, I would like to take a moment and actually put the spotlight on a couple of our council members and just ask if you could share a thought or two based on that reflection exercise about what actions you're taking to prepare for your reviews, and maybe that's something insightful that we can all learn from, as well as are there any, how are you preparing to think about impactful goal setting? So if there's anyone that would like to jump in, otherwise I'll just call on you because I know I can.
I'll jump in. I hate being called on. Thanks, Jean. This is actually very timely for me. I was spending quite a bit of time on airplanes this week and had some time to really think about it, knowing that we were having today ahead of us and also goal setting up ahead. And the easiest way for me to do this is to just start journaling. I do better with just stream of consciousness for a little bit, to be able to just reflect and let my thoughts come out on a piece of paper, old-fashioned pen, paper, and just writing. Last night I was stuck in the middle seat and couldn't really get my laptop out, so I just had my journal on the little tray in front of me and just started writing as if I was writing a letter to my CEO with the things that I wanted him to know. And it's obviously not something I will actually give to him, but it helps me know what I do want to communicate to him when we talk. And as for goals, that same thing where I was identifying the things that I was celebrating and wanting to work on from 2024, it dovetailed into the things that I want to keep working on in 2025 and the new challenges that are in front of me in 2025 and the way that I want to approach them. So my approach is to give myself some quiet time to just sit and write until I have a bunch in front of me, and then I can sort of bucket things in a way that makes sense and is helpful for preparing for a conversation.
I love that. That's great.
Jean,
Other council members.
say,
Yeah,
Jean, I
Jolene.
can jump in. Good, well, morning to some, afternoon to some of y'all, but thank you so much for joining this today. Shelby said some things that really resonated with me personally, and I think I fall into this trap of not wanting to be boastful or talk about my accomplishments and give credit to either the team or, you know, whoever I'm working on to accomplish a goal. I really believe in teamwork, but it made me reflect and think about not being afraid to take credit for some accomplishments and really, you know, lean into that self-advocacy and not look at it as being boastful, but truly, you know, recognizing some accomplishments. So I'm going to take that to heart and, you know, reflect. And as I do have those discussions with my boss this year, not be afraid to take credit for some things that I was a part of accomplishing. So, and I really appreciate it. Also, I don't get a lot of time to sit and reflect and think about things like this. So it was really great moment today to have a little bit of time to focus on that. So I'm excited to kind of leave the week with this and think about next year.
Thank you, Jolene.
I'm going to share because otherwise I know Gina's going to call on me, but I'm Stephanie
right.
Martin with FCCS. And I've been the one actively trying to fill the chat up. So hopefully that's been helpful in sparking some conversation. But I've got a couple of things, and it's either regarding performance reviews or feedback, or just things that I've heard in some of the calls that we've had before this webinar with the council. But one of the things for performance reviews, and I'm sure all 200 plus of you on this call already know that, but really is that it should never be a surprise to anyone. Someone shouldn't walk in your office for their performance review and leave completely surprised by the feedback that they get. It may be a little different than what they thought, but they should know in the moment if there are feedback moments, feedback opportunities. Those should happen much more quickly than or regularly than once a year. So of course, no surprises. There should be follow-up. What are the next steps to this? If there are things we've talked about, either you setting goals or recognizing your accomplishments, what are the next steps for you as a manager? And what are the next steps for you as the team member? Jean actually was previously my manager and gave me this great question that I now ask is, what should I know that I don't know? And you get a lot of interesting responses to this. So be prepared because you're opening the door. But what is it as a manager or someone on the EC or someone who isn't part of a conversation you may be having, team member, what is it I should know that I don't know? And you'll get some really great information and think, wow, I can't believe I didn't know that, or I wasn't part of that conversation. But then what do I do with that? On one of the things I want to just caution all of us on, as this is a women's leadership initiative, because I actually do hear this from women more than I do from my male counterparts, is we kind of have imposter syndrome. We think that either to apply for that promotion or the next job or to ask for more responsibilities, we feel like we have to be 99% of the way there, versus we're already talented, we're experienced, and we're smart. So go for it. So reach. That's my advice for you in 2025 is set a goal that's like, how am I going to reach? How am I going to say and feel that confidence that I know what I know I'm smart, I know I'm experienced, and I know I'm talented. So how do I stop that imposter syndrome? How do I have that confidence? And how do I build the confidence if I don't have the confidence now? And maybe that's a question for your manager in your performance review of, how can I build my confidence? How can I demonstrate my experience, expertise, and smarts? Because we all on this call have it. So that's my message that I would share for you as we close out this year and you prepare for performance reviews and also goal setting for 2025.
I love that. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for that. Rachel, I think you wanted to make a comment as well.
I did. Stephanie, thank you so much for saying that. And I just wanted to tag on, and I don't want to take us down a rabbit hole, but I just finished a book called Likeable Badass. Highly recommend. And one of the things that she discusses in that book is what is imposter syndrome and why do we as women typically get plagued by this? And I don't know if it's the definition, but is one that resonated with me. And the way that it was described in that book is that we leaders, type A, highly strung, overachievers, I think I probably described 99.9% of the people on this call, we have really high standards for ourselves. We have high bars that we expect ourselves to meet. And in setting those high bars, we're pushing hard. And in our mind, we never hit that bar. And so in our mind, we aren't as good as others who are watching us strive to that bar observe. And so when you get the feedback from others who are seeing you go after it and complete one thing after another in an effort to achieve the very high goal you set for yourself, that's all they're seeing. What we're seeing is the gap between what we've accomplished and the goal that we set for ourselves. And it's from that gap that imposter syndrome creeps in, according to this author, because it makes us feel like I'm not as good as they think I am. But the only one who knows about this goal that we're not meeting is us. And all of the people who are cheering us on, who are admiring us, who are looking to us for leadership, they don't know that you're not achieving what you want to achieve. All they see is you getting it done and doing it well. And that's the feedback you get, which is inconsistent with the goal achievement that you have set for yourself. And when I started thinking about imposter syndrome that way, it made it a little easier for me to be nicer to myself.
That is great. Thank you for sharing that, Rachel. LaTanya, I'd like to welcome you to share some thoughts.
Thank you again for being here. A couple of things I just want to lift up that came out of a variety of conversations I've had with teammates and others over the course of the last 6 weeks. And is one, you don't have to have done everything to be able to do something. So always think about what that next something is, that next stretch is. And while I don't want to feed into that gap that we potentially could find ourselves speaking into with imposter syndrome, I really always have wanted to talk to people about, I have a lot of conversations of, well, I haven't done anything like that. Well, you have done something like that. It just may not be at work. And I want to emphasize that we all have capabilities. We are showing up in our personal lives, our educational lives, our spiritual lives, our community engagement lives in ways that we don't always have the opportunity to do at work, which means the 360 of you that exists outside of the 360 at work has done almost everything. You have been on the mountain. You have hit the stride. You have taken on that charity event. You've led that luncheon. You have done it. It just might not have been at work. So as we go through this process of looking at goals, I want you to just think for a moment how you can look at the fullness of who you are and all of the skills and capabilities that you've learned from all the amazing things that we do each and every day to keep ourselves and our families where we want them to be, and the dreams that we have for them, where we're doing things we've never done. We never saw our parents do it. We haven't seen an aunt do it. We haven't seen an uncle do it. We didn't see our grandparents do it. And we do those things every day effortlessly for our families. But when it comes to work, we all of a sudden are, well, I haven't done that before, so I don't know if I can do it now. So I want us, as we go through the rest of this time together, to remember the fabulousness and fullness of who we are, bring all of that creativity and courage into the space of work, and use that as the place to lift yourself up and to keep yourself buoyant, rather than looking at what you haven't done in this very narrow space of our lives, in this very narrow role that we play professionally. Because what you bring to everything else in your life, if you brought all of that into work, we would be CEOs of every company we've ever worked for.
Right on. Right on. Thank you so much, LaTanya. That is so true. I'm thinking about when I do a workout with a personal trainer and I'm like, I can't do this. And he's like, can't isn't the word. Only focus on I can, and what can you bring and how can you challenge yourself even further? Love it. I just wanted to make a mention too, that since LaTanya was just speaking, that mindfulness moment that she started us off with, use that practice to prepare yourself for the performance review and other things when you have great opportunities to have a powerful meeting or a challenging meeting that's coming up. Take a moment to practice that mindfulness moment and to get yourself ready to have a really strong, good conversation. But I'm going to adopt this practice because I think it's incredibly helpful, and we're just running from thing to thing to thing all the time. So I think it's a really great way to get yourself centered. All right, we're going to move on to our next session. And this is really an exercise to help us think about how do we really foster networking opportunities and building a strong network, creating those connections. How do we go about that in a really intentional way? So I'd like to invite Jenny Mesereau to lead us through this next exercise.
Thank you, Jean. What an incredible hour already. I could not be more excited and privileged to be a part of this group. Jenny Mesereau with the Farm Credit Council. I'm Senior Vice President of Government Affairs, and wanted to talk to you a little bit about networking, which I think is such a great build on to the conversation that we just had about looking forward to 2025 and networking being an important part of the things that we do in 2025. And I know that for a lot of us, when we hear the term networking, we think another way that we have to put ourselves out there and expend energy connecting with other people when we already are connecting with our coworkers and our kids at home and our husbands and the people in our personal lives. And that takes energy and work too. As the lobbyist for the Farm Credit System, I completely understand that. My entire job in a lot of ways is to show up in rooms where I know nobody and get to know them and find ways to connect with folks that I often have nothing in common with. So I very much understand the emotional and mental work that it takes to network. But what I hope you all are seeing from just our hour together is the networking and opportunities within the Farm Credit System amongst these women are incredible. You heard such amazing feedback already and such great insights already. And we hope that this group, the Village, gives everyone an opportunity to find additional folks within the Farm Credit System to connect with, and that you're going into it in a positive and very safe space. So with that, we wanted to share with you a QR code, and we hope you will scan it and fill out a little bit of information. And what we're really trying to gather is the differences of roles and tenure within the Farm Credit System that it's included in this Zoom, as well as what your networking goals might look like for 2025. So I'm going to pop that
Jenny,
up here.
Jenny,
Yes,
real
ma'am.
quick, we just posted the link to this rather than a QR code. Sorry to interrupt.
Perfect. So there is a link to the survey, and if you would take a minute or two to fill out that survey quickly, and then we'll come back here and talk a little bit about what we're hoping the purpose of this survey will be. All right, it looks like a lot of folks have completed it. So we really appreciate you sharing insights about yourselves with us. And in the spirit of networking, what we'd like to do to kick off one of the village activities for next year is to pair everyone on this call with one other person, provide you some prompt questions to kick off a conversation so that we can begin that connection amongst ourselves and that networking opportunity amongst ourselves. I think we've talked so much about feedback and advice and camaraderie and how important that is as we professionally develop and personally develop. And having this opportunity to connect one-on-one and to build out that network just gives you more people in your village to provide that feedback and that connection to. So I love all the comments about meeting new contacts at events and strengthening existing relationships. And we're hoping that the village can help you kick off those goals by connecting you to another individual on this call so that you can build those relationships. And one of my favorite parts about being in the Farm Credit System for the past 14 years has been the incredible women that I've met and the network that I've built. And they've helped me so much grow both professionally and personally. And I know that this group is going to provide even more opportunities for me, and I hope for all of you to do the same. So that's our thoughts on what we can do with this opportunity and this village that we are building for next year.
Great. All right. Well, thank you so much, Jenny, and thanks for sharing some of the goals that we're seeing into chat. I think, as I was reflecting on the last year, I've been really, I don't know if I was intentional about it or not, but I've really worked hard to build up the courage to go and meet new people at different events and just really try to find a way to foster more connections. And it's actually made my sense of satisfaction in the work that I do a lot more enriching and powerful. So I've just really appreciated that. Is there anyone on the council do you have a tip that, just for when you're out at an event of how you might go about networking in a way that feels authentic and gets you over the nerves of breaking into conversations?
I did, Jean, want to send it over to our colleague, Kelly Miller, who I believe had a story she was going to share about networking.
Yes, thank you.
Yes. Hello, everybody. My name is Kelly Miller. I am in Lakeville, Minnesota from Compeer Financial. So we have one of our offices here, actually at my home on a Friday afternoon. But, and I think to your point, sometimes we do cringe when we hear networking. But it is something that's really important. And it's something that, we started this hour, the hour with, you have to be intentional. You have to go to this hour with purpose. That is the same thing you have to do with networking. And I've worked in a couple different organizations within the Farm Credit System, and they had a very different makeup. And one of them had, all of the really big footprint locally. Right. I worked for Farm Credit Services of America, and they had quite a few people all in one location. So then internally, it was really easy to network, right? You could just walk by their desks. You could see them in the hallway. You could go to a different building, and it was easy to build your network. And but when I moved over to Compeer 6 years ago, I discounted how hard it was going to be to build that network back up. I was 15 years into my career, and I was starting from zero, or I felt like I was starting from zero. So I came over 15 years into my career in a brand new organization, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't even know where to start. And it was the offices were small, and we were in 3 different states. And what I realized is I had to be incredibly intentional with who do I need to know and how am I going to do this? And so I had to work really closely with my leader, with like, who are the top 5? Who are the top 5 that I need to start with, right? Who are the top 5 that, that I should prioritize in the next couple of weeks of starting? And then go from there. And then based on that, when I met with those 5, okay, give me 1 or 2 people that you think that would be really important for me to know from there. And, just kind of trickled. And so after the first year, I had a good footing of who was what and what was where and who was making decisions. But it took me a long time. But I absolutely had to be intentional, because I wasn't walking by people's desks. I wasn't seeing somebody, in a different building. And so there's very different ways and very different organizations that you might come into, right? And so one of the things that I also realized is, we also think of networking of happy hours, golfing, all of those things. I don't really drink. My golf game sucks, like all of these things. And so for me, it was really finding a way that was authentic. And Jean, I think you just said that, like what really feels authentic. And for me, it was, I wanted to make sure I wasn't faking my way through it. And so for me, it was, I wanted to lean into them where their expertise was. So when I was creating this network around me internally, it was making sure that they knew that I was going to them because people told me that they were the experts in that area. And which was true, right? My leader told me, the person in credit, I need to talk to that person. And so they knew that, my leader told them, you gotta talk to Sean, you gotta talk to Anna, whoever it might be, because they're the expert. And that was authentic, right? I wasn't going to go buy them a beer. I wasn't going to go golfing with them, but I was going to reach out to them because they were the expert. And so whatever might be authentic to you, some might have a great golf game. Some may, play pickleball, whatever it might be, that could be authentic to you. But whatever it is, make sure it feels good. Otherwise, it's not gonna land well with the other party. And the other thing is the feedback. Remember, we just talked about feedback as a gift. And this year, I realized, actually about 2 years ago, I realized I had created an incredibly strong network outside of our organization. But what I hadn't done a good job the last year prior to that was developing and fostering my internal relationships. And I got feedback saying, hey, Kelly, you need to work on your internal relationships. And so you have to be intentional. You have to keep fostering them, right? It's not just, that first year or two when I spent a ton of time with them. You have to keep doing it. And so feedback's a gift too. When your leader says, hey, make sure you're continuing to work on your network internally, make sure you're taking that to heart. So I think it's not only internal relationships that are important, especially as a leader in your organization. The people beside you are going to get you further along. But make sure that you're listening to your leader and making sure that you're fostering those relationships around you as well. So internally and externally. I think that's the only thing I had to say regarding that, Jean. That's a little bit about my story on how the differences in different organizations have worked and how I had to be really intentional when I went into a new organization 6 years ago.
I love that. Thank you. And
Yep.
Jenny, I appreciate really good, really strong tips and reinforcement. Jenny, I saw that you posted something in chat. Do you want to just highlight that for us?
Absolutely, happy to. I posted in the chat just a quick tip on how I approach, particularly when I'm at big events. And we tend to kind of offer throwaway questions to each other, like, how was your day? Or what did you do over the weekend? And we either just respond with 1 or 2 words of good or great or not that bad. Or we give a list of everything we did that, well, I grocery shopped on Sunday and dropped my kids off at soccer, because I imagine most of the 200 of you on this call are constantly running the list of everything that has to be done in your minds. So a good way to develop a conversation out of that interaction with people that you're just meeting, instead of providing the list or just saying good, say, my son scored his first goal in soccer this weekend, and it was the coolest thing. And now you've given that person something very tangible to connect with you on and to respond to. So I encourage you, it takes the edge off of conversation sometimes when you do that. And if you're intentional about it and you have a couple of stories prepared for yourself for those questions, when you go into networking events, it really helps make connections with folks as opposed to just kind of talking past each other.
That is excellent. Thank you, Jenny. And I really want to reinforce after the first of the year, when we get back to everyone and trying to put these partnerships together. One of the things that I did this last year was at many conferences, I would always run into a gentleman who is on many of our conference steering committees. And earlier this year, he and I just, I don't know, I think it was a reception and we were talking and we decided to become each other's accountability partners. And so he is someone that I can reach out to if I'm having a challenging situation and I can't get out of my own head about it. And I can reach out to him and he helps me think through it and gives me really good advice. And then I can do the same for him. And so we're continuing this into 2025, and we have a meeting actually next week where we're going to talk to each other about what our goals are for 2025. And so these are the types of powerful relationships that you can foster. Happens to be a male accountability partner, but I have many females too. And so I think just trying to think about how do you really cultivate that network in a way that enriches you personally in your leadership and where you're trying to go in your life and career. All right. Well, we are on the home run where, it is the season of giving. So I think we're going to be giving you all a little bit of a gift of time back into your very busy days. But I'd like to invite Rachel and LaTanya to talk about some of the next steps for the village. And then LaTanya will lead us in a closing mindfulness moment.
Thank you, Jean. What a kickoff. Wow. In reflecting more on one of my proudest moments of this year, Shelby, thank you for that form. One of my proudest moments is being a part of this. We're standing up this Systems Women's Leadership Initiative, and I am beyond excited and proud that this is launched. I hope that each of you has at least one takeaway that you feel will be valuable as you prepare for whatever is ahead of you in the coming weeks. And let's start leveraging this group today. We don't need to wait. Is it feedback you need? 360s, reflections? Could you use a champion? Could you use a coach or a cheerleader to help you? I got one IM during this call today talking about championship. Let's do it. What do you need? You now have a village. There's still close to 200 people on this call right now. Put it in the chat. What do you need? Who can help you? What are you looking for? How can we support you? The village, as we build and develop it, is intended to be a tool for every single one of us and a community. So if there are things that we can do for each other today before we have this fully matured, let's do it. Please look for a survey from FCCS in which you'll be asked to provide feedback on today and ideas for what we can do for you and for others to inspire the women of Farm Credit to get involved with the village. Starting early next year, there will be opportunities to get involved. We hope to hope another virtual event in March in Women's History Month. And we also want to give everyone notice now that we are planning a live and in-person event, hopefully for June in conjunction with the Systems Leadership Conference, to bring us together. And we're working on what that could look like now. The goal is to really start to develop a robust community for you and all of the colleagues that make up Farm Credit and all the different women in the system that can support each other. I believe that we're standing up a portal of sorts to allow for collaboration and communication. It's not there yet, but it will be. Until then, keep an eye out for updates and opportunities to get involved. Today's call has been recorded and we will provide access to that link. So share it far and wide with everyone that you think would have enjoyed this and could benefit from having a village of women to support you in your career. With that, I want to say thank you for spending your valuable time with us today. And before we send you off to go do great things, I want to bring LaTanya back to meaningfully close us out. LaTanya?
Thank you, Rachel. I appreciate it. I just want to thank all of you again for being here, for your engagement during this time of shared purpose and commitment. There's a quote that I had the pleasure of seeing and hearing when I was in a women's leadership program a couple of years ago. And it was inspired by the books of Beatrice McFadden, and it's written by someone here locally in St. Louis, Missouri, and she's the director of leadership for the local foundation. If you don't mind, do me a favor and unmute yourself. I know some of us aren't on camera, but I've said this to myself multiple times, and when you say it out loud, there's something transformative that happens to your spirit. So I'll give everybody a moment to unmute themselves, because I'd like for us to try and say this together. There's a little bit of background noise, so if someone's got something happening in the back, sounds like construction, you may want to stay on mute. For those of us who are ready, let's do this. It's my time.
Best in me.
My time
to release
what no longer serves me.
It's my time.
My time
to embrace new possibilities.
My time to be
unapologetically me.
My time
to level up and lead.
My time to
thrive.
You'll have this, and I know it was I wanted this to sound like what it is. You're never alone. You are always with someone. There's always someone feeling the same way. And if we come together and decide that it's our time to do these things, we will create a symphony of opportunity for other people and an amazing experience for each other. And I really appreciate you being willing to do this with me this afternoon.
Great. Thank you everyone for being here. Watch for the survey. We want your feedback and input to shape the future of the village together. Have a wonderful holiday season, everyone.